Rock Chat with Trace.
Welcome to this week's podcast of Rock Chat with Trace. In this podcast, I am talking to Dave from the heavy metal band of Hell in the Club. Hello, Dave, and welcome to Rock Chat with Trace. How did you start out in music?
Well, actually, it was when I was a kid. I used to take classical guitar lessons, and that was my first approach in music, I would say. But I was like 7 or 8 years old. And then I continued, and then it progressed to electric guitar. And then I started to play in a cover band. We were all like kids playing, the classics from Metallica and Maiden and so on. And we just needed a singer, and we couldn't find one. And I was just playing guitar. But one day I just tried to sing, and that's where my singer career started, basically from nowhere, from not knowing how to sing, but it felt good, and I started like that. We went on for a couple of months like this, and then I joined Alvin King in 1998, and then the rest is history.
Who are your influences?
My influences, well, basically I grew up as a child with as I said, the classics. I mean, Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, all those bands from the 80s, basically. And that is I would say, my basic influence. When I was a kid, I used to listen to those bands, Motley Crue, Kiss, all those bands. Then, of course, I followed the metal scene through the years, and of course, I had other influences coming in from power metal to black metal, death metal. I was really a lot into the metal scene. But of course, also when I was a kid, I used to listen to a lot of other things in music, like classical music or pop music artists like Michael Jackson, Madonna. So my influences can be practically anything, that I like in music. But let's say, that I would say the strongest influences are in the 80s hard rock and heavy metal scene.
Can you tell me the history of the band?
The history of the band. Well, actually, the band was formed in 2009. The idea was, and is, the bass player. He used to play in Secret Sphere, the power metal band, Italian power metal band. But, since he is a big fan of the 80s and of hard rock from the 80s, I always wanted to form a band like Hell in the Club, basically. We met in 2009 when both our bands played together for the first time, so Secret Sphere and Alvin King. And, we were part of the Italian metal scene since, the late 90s, but we never met in person. We knew each other because we played in these bands, but we never met each other. And that was the first time we met in person, and we just, started to talk about music, and me and Andy, and he just talked to me about this idea to form a band, a hard rock band, and a couple of days later he sent me some songs he was working on, and that's where Hell in the Club was born.
Your new album, Hell of Fame, came out at the beginning of September. How would you describe its sound?
Well, if you followed Hell in the Club since the beginning, of course this new album is a little bit, let's say, back to our roots. With this I mean that compared to the latest album, to the previous one, See You on the Dark Side, which was released in 2017, this album, has a feeling, a vibe that resembles a little bit the first album, or anyway the first songs that we used to play as in the club. So let's say that it is more straight to the point compared to See You on the Dark Side, which was a little bit more, I wouldn't say complicated, but we worked a lot more on arrangements, on building the song structures. For example, on that album we had long song with orchestras, piano, choirs. Another song we had a real 30-piece string orchestra playing on one of the songs. So it was a little bit more elaborated, let's say. This time it was more straight to the point. It was an idea that the guys had, also together with the record company, and that was an idea that I didn't like it very much at the beginning, because as a songwriter, as all these things like song structures and arrangements, I'm a lot into that stuff, and I really had fun on the previous album. So I expected this new album to be like an evolution of that, a step forward. but the guys were more, into the simple stuff this time. And I was like, okay, you start the songwriting process. I trust you. In that period, I was working on Alvin King's latest album, so I wasn't present since day one on the songwriting process. So I said to the guys, okay, I trust you. You start the songwriting process, and then I will join you later on and see. As I said, I didn't enjoy that much the idea of a simpler album, but I joined them. I wrote 3 songs in the end of the songwriting process, and I have to say that in the end, everything, worked pretty much. The album is really cool. I mean, even if it's simple and more straight to the point, I'm also reading a lot of reviews, a lot of fans that are, saying that this is a great album, even better than the previous one. So maybe this is a genre, a kind of music where, when you add too many things, maybe they don't work that good. Maybe in metal it's different, and I'm more, my roots maybe are more into the metal scene. And that's why, orchestrations and, some difficult song structures and so on, they work pretty much in metal. But in rock, sometimes you just have to, keep in mind that it's rock, it's hard rock. It has to be straight at some point. So yeah, the album is cool, I think.
Your latest single, Worst Case Scenario, sounds very 80s. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing that we all agree on in the band, and one thing that we have in common is, as I said, the love, for the 80s, maybe in music or in, all the films that we used to watch, and we were grown up in those years, and in Hell in the Club, we just have no boundaries when it comes to sound 80s. You know what I mean? So yeah, songs like Worst Case Scenario, Nostalgia are songs that are totally influenced by the 80s.
Have you got any softer songs on the album?
Yes, there is one, which is Lullaby for an Angel, yeah, which is like, the classic power ballad. More songs like these in the past, but yeah, this time we have this one, which is, actually, this was a song that Andy was working on since forever. I mean, it has been years that I've been listening to the chorus and the verse of that song, but in the end, we finally, finished it and recorded it on this album.
One of the songs on the album is called The Joker. Is that who inspired that song?
Yeah, well, the song is totally about the character, the comic and film character. This was written by Andy, and I remember that he was watching the trailer of the film, the latest film, Joker, and he wanted to watch that movie so bad that he just wrote a song, and he decided to make this song and to put into the lyrics all of the Joker's faces, through all the movies, through all the comics, and there is of course the Joker of the first Tim Burton's films. There's the Joker of the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight film, and then also this latest more psychological figure that is now in this new film. So yeah, basically the song is a tribute to him.
What would you say is your favourite film?
My favorite film, that is a hard one because I am a big fan of films, and I would say probably Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola.
How do you come up with the images for the cover artwork?
Well, we are, as I said, fans of the 80s and all that is music of those years, but especially me, I'm a big horror fan of horror in all its phases. I mean, in cinema and literature, and all the many aspects of what horror stands for. So I tried to combine what was the typical way of the 80s to rock and metal covers, this, like Iron Maiden, for example, this big, good-looking covers, and putting this, a little touch of horror here and there. So basically, this is the concept behind all the Hell in the Club covers.
How did you keep yourself occupied during lockdown?
A lot of colleagues of ours would say music, but I think it was very difficult for me, especially for me, to write music in that specific couple of months, you know. So I don't know why. Music when you come to songwriting, there has to be a certain inspiration, of course, and those 2 months were totally not inspiring for me, even if it was a bad time. And most of the times, the bad times are fuel for good songwriting, but not this time, not for me. So I just, enjoyed the few things I could do at home, like reading books, watching films and TV series and so on. And I just, spent my time trying to be in peace with myself. And that was, I think, very, very good for me.
How much fun was the release party for the new album?
It was super fun, but at the same time, it was super strange because, of course, due to the pandemic, the live concerts here in Italy, especially when they're in closed venues, when people has to remain seated, in a club that had 500 capacity, we only had like 90 seats, and of course, to make it a little bit work better, we had two shows, so we had the persons in one show and 90 in the second. It was a bit stressful because we had to play two times, two different set lists, completely different set lists, but it was fun and it was great to see that all the seats were occupied. I mean, people wants to go to concerts again, the will to go back to normality, of course. But yeah, it was very, very fun. It was very good.
Marco joined the band this year. How is that working out?
It's working great. As you may know, he played with us many times before because he substituted our other drummers that we had. First Fede from the first two albums, and then the other Marco Langs, who played on the other two albums. But when they were not able to play with us, Marco Lazzarini came and substituted them. So we already played with him a lot of times, and we knew that he was the right person, the right drummer. So yeah, everything is working great with him. And he also wrote a song on this new album, which is "We'll Never Leave the Castle," the first single.
Anything you wish to mention?
I think that we talked about a lot of things. These are strange times we had. So basically, I would love to talk about the tour. I would love what we are doing in order to support the new album, but unfortunately there's nothing to say because, still no tour is confirmed, and, we know that it sucks, but we will do our best to promote the new album, even if it will take, one more year, but yeah.
How do people get the new album?
Well, of course, digitally, Spotify, Apple Music, and so on, you will find it there. And of course, by ordering a copy, the record company shop, you can find it there, and you can order it there. Amazon and all those shops, you can find it there, no problem. In the next days, we will probably sell on our own shop a signed version of the CD, maybe with a T-shirt. We are working on it, so yeah, maybe we'll sell some packages in order to support the band a little bit, even if we cannot tour, But yeah, if you head up on our website, on Facebook or Instagram, you'll get all the info.
I'd like to thank my guest, Dave, from the heavy metal band of Hell in the Club, for coming on Rock Chat with Trace.